Oh my goodness, isn't this just so cute? I love the little surprise when you open the pocket and you just have this pretty little fabric in there to see. And oh gosh, what kind of surprises do we have in here? Oh, how cute. How charming is this? More zippered pockets and a center divider pocket, and what fun contrasting fabric. Oh, I like it. This is really, really cute. Well, hello friends. Did y'all think I had just disappeared off the face of the earth? I have missed y'all. It has been so long since I've posted a video. Well, it feels like so long. It's been 3 weeks. So that is a really long time for me, being, you know, we're normally used to posting every week. This summer has been insane, y'all. It's been insane, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually really looking forward to the summer being over so that I can get back on a normal routine and start bringing y'all content on a weekly basis again. I'm really looking forward to fall and just things settling down. I do want to thank all of you for sticking with me throughout these summer months. While we have just had, Michael and I have had a lot of events that we've had to attend throughout the summer. It has definitely been busy. So thank you all so much for sticking with us and being patient with us as we are working hard to get content out as frequently as we can. And it won't be long and we will be back to normal. Today, we are going to be working on a really cute tote bag. You had a little spoiler alert there at the beginning, and I've had so many of you reach out and ask if I could do a more in-depth tutorial on how to make a tote bag with extra pockets. Last summer we made a really cute one, but some of you have reached out and asked if I could show you how to do one with a lot more pockets. So that's what we're jumping into today. We're going to create this gorgeous little tote bag, and I'm going to show y'all how I put this whole thing together. It was so much fun to put this together, and I couldn't be happier with how well this turned out. This one actually has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pockets. So I'm going to show y'all how to do the hidden zipper pockets as well as a divider pocket in this tote bag. So let's get started. Are y'all ready to sew? Okay, let's talk about the pattern for our tote bag. I have created mine out of just a piece of poster board. I find this to be the easiest way to create my pattern when I'm designing, you know, my own pattern. Obviously, this is how I go about doing it. I just think it's a lot easier than having to piece a whole bunch of pieces of paper together. So for the main part of our tote bag, we are going to be cutting it 16 by 16 and a half inches this way by 14 inches this way. You're going to need, for the main body, you're going to need to cut 2 of these. For the liner, you're going to need to cut 2. And then for our divider pocket, you're going to need to cut 2. However, for the divider pocket, you do not want to cut the boxed corner notches out. These are the notches for our boxed corners. So for the divider pocket piece, you want it to be 16 and a half this way by 14 inches this way without the boxed corner cutouts. Then we are going to need a piece for our outer pocket. This is going to be the pocket that's on the outside of our tote bag. This piece is going to be 7 inches tall by 11 and a half inches wide this direction. And for this piece, you're going to want to cut it on the fold. That is very important for our zipper pockets. You need to make sure you cut it on the fold. Then we're going to go ahead and have 2 inner pockets on the inside, 2 inner zipper pockets on the inside, in addition to our divider pocket. This one is 6 by 6, and again, you want to cut these on the fold. And for mine, I am cutting 2. That's personal preference. For the straps, this is also personal preference here. I like my straps to be short. I don't like a great big long strap. So I am cutting mine 16 and a half inches long by 5 inches tall this way. This is personal preference. So you just cut your straps to whatever size you prefer your straps to be. Then we're going to need a zipper piece. This is going to be kind of like our zipper holder. For this piece, you're going to need to cut it 16.5 inches this way by 3 inches this way by 3 inches tall. I will have the pattern outline available for y'all as a free download so that you have all of the measurements that I am using for this specific tote bag. Obviously, you're going to have to cut your own pattern and create it to the specified measurements. Okay, so I've gone ahead and cut all of my pieces out. I didn't want to bore you guys with, making you watch me cut fabric, because, that isn't very exciting. So all of my pieces are cut out. Now, something to keep in mind with your pattern pieces is you're probably going to want to use some fusible interfacing just to help give your fabric a little more stability, especially if you're just using a, like a thinner cotton fabric. You're going to want to have this fusible interfacing attached to all of your pieces. So I've also gone ahead and done that. So all of these have the interfacing already fused. When using fusible interfacing, oh, I don't have a piece sitting here. Okay, I'll be right back. Let me go grab a piece so I can show y'all what it looks like and how to properly attach it to your fabric. Be right back. This is the interfacing that I used. You can purchase this in several different ways. You can purchase it at a lot of fabric stores. You can purchase it by the yard, or you can just do what I did, and I just purchased mine on Amazon so that I had, a full roll. However, it wasn't quite the same width as my fabric, so I did have to kind of piece these together and overlap a little, which is perfectly fine because it just gives it a little extra stability to do that. So for example, like here, you can see where I've pieced it together and I just overlapped it, which is perfectly fine, especially on the bottom. It just gives it a little extra stability, so it's not a big deal to do that. All right. Oops. Okay, so when you're working with fusible interfacing, you're going to have one side that is kind of smooth and one side that is bumpy. The bumpy side is the glue side. So the glue side obviously goes down on your fabric, and you want to make sure that you are always attaching this to the wrong side of your fabric. You obviously don't want it to be across the front. I think that's pretty obvious right there. So that is how I've done this, and I did use a medium weight interfacing. That also is depends on the weight of your fabric. If you have pretty thin fabric, I recommend using either a heavyweight or a medium weight interfacing. If you have canvas fabric, you might just want to use a lightweight or a featherweight interfacing just to give it a little extra stability. Let's go over all of our fabric pieces just one more time, just as a clarification here. So for the straps, you need to cut two pieces, and I have fused these as well with some interfacing. For the zipper holder, you're going to also need to cut two. And this is my outer bag, the outer fabric for my bag. So I cut my zipper pieces in that same fabric so that they match. I've got two inner pockets, and here you can see I cut it on the fold. This is a very important step. You definitely want to make sure that you leave this fold intact and that you cut this piece on the fold. And this is the outer pocket. I do have two of these. This is our outer pocket. Again, I cut it on the fold so that it's one big piece. This is really important because this is what makes the pocket. So you want to make sure you cut it on the fold. All right, then this is my lining, and I've cut this 16.5 this way by 14 this way, and then I cut out my boxed corner notches, which are 3 by 3. This is a 3 by 3 square that I just drew onto my pattern and then just cut this out that way. This is the outer piece. So I've also cut two of these with my boxed corner notches, and then this is going to be the inner divider pocket. You do need to also cut 2 of these. However, remember, this is the piece that is cut without the notches. So this piece needs to be whole. It needs to be 16.5 this way by 14 this way, all the way through with no boxed corner notches. The first thing that we're going to do is prepare our outer pocket. So for this, you just need 1 piece of your outer fabric. This is the outside part of our bag. It doesn't matter what piece at this point. It will when we attach it. If you want your pocket to be in the front or the back, then we can go over that. But for now, it doesn't matter which piece you take. We're going to open up our pocket. And we want to get this centered, as close to center as you possibly can. You can measure it if you want to be precise, which I probably will before I start sewing, to make sure that I get it, really even and really centered on my fabric. Then you're going to want to come down about 2.5 to 3 inches, because you want to make sure that you don't get this too close to the top, so that because you're going to have a zipper here, but you're also going to have a seam allowance here. So you don't want your pocket to be too close to the top. I like mine to be about 2.5 to 3 inches down from the top. The other thing to keep in mind with this is you also don't want to get it too low, because once it's folded and it becomes a pocket, you don't want it to be below your notched box corners, your box corner notches. You do not want this to come below that. So you want to keep it about somewhere between 2 and 3 inches from the top, and about 1 to 1.5 inches from the bottom of your piece. Okay? So to prepare this for our zipper, I am going to be using some zipper rulers here. I love these things. If you do a lot of zippers in your tote bags, like hidden zippers, I recommend getting these. It just makes life so much easier than doing all the measuring, because I am not mathematically inclined and don't particularly enjoy doing all the measuring and trying to figure out all the things. So I just invested in these. They're really very inexpensive, and I will have them linked in the supply list for y'all so that you can easily find them. So we're going to be using this one today because this is a pretty long pocket. So I want to use my longest zipper outline. This you also want to make sure is really centered on your piece. I'm actually going to flip this. You want to make sure that this is centered on your piece really well. So I'm going to go grab my tape measure so that I can make sure I get this centered. I'm just going to take a pin. Oh, and you want it to be, actually I have this down too far. You only want it to be about 1.5 inches from the top. A lot of these, like these ones, these clear ones, that's why I really like these ones, because with these ones you just lay it on here and this edge goes at the top, and then this gives you your 1/2 inch down. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and make sure this is centered. And then you also wanna make sure that it is only about 1 inch down from the top. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure my 1 inch down from the top, mark that, and then I want it to be about 1 1/4 in on both sides, or 1 1/8 on both sides. So it needs to come, whoops, this way. There we go. Okay, so now I have this centered on my pocket, and I also have it 1 inch down from the top. And I'm just gonna go ahead and trace all the way around this. Hold on to it tight so it does not move, because you'll have a little bit of a crooked zipper on your piece if this moves. So you want to make sure that it does not move. Okay, so now I've drawn that on. Then you will notice on this there's a little slit down the center. That little slit is also very, very important. So we're just going to trace that on. Then you'll notice there's some little triangles here. These triangles are very, very important. You're going to take this piece and put the triangle on this edge. Line up that triangle. Whoa. Make sure it's straight. Trace your triangle on, because that is very important. And we'll flip it over and do the same thing. Okay, so the tips of your triangle should meet up right with the tip of your little center line here. This is how it should look. This is how we prepare for our hidden pocket, for the zipper for our hidden pocket. The next thing we need to do is center the pocket on here and decide where you want it. Again, like I said, I like mine to be about 2 to 3 inches from the top and about 1 to 1.5 inches from here. So that actually looks pretty good. Measure it. Oh, spot on. Spot on. Then open it up, because you don't want to close. You don't want to sew this closed. You want to make sure it's open so that your flap is down at the bottom, facing downwards. And then you want right sides together. So you want the right side of your pocket facing the right side of your liner. And I'm going to go ahead and just pin mine so that it does not move, because I don't want this to move when we go to sew it. Now we are ready to attach our pocket to our outer tote bag piece. And you want to sew it exactly like this. So you want to make sure that this flap is down and opened. And then we're going to take this to the sewing machine, and we are going to sew straight across this box, our outer box that we made. So we're going to start here, sew all the way down, sew down this edge, come back across to here, and sew back up to this. So now we've gone ahead and sewn our entire pocket, the pocket for our zipper. This is going to become our zipper opening. So the next thing we need to do is we need to take our scissors and cut this line right here, because this is what's going to become the opening for the zipper. The thing to remember is you don't want to cut past the tip of your triangle on either side. So we're going to cut this, and then we need to cut straight up the triangle on both sides. Just be really careful not to cut into the stitching on the outer box. I'm going to go ahead and cut this. We're just going to cut again straight across this line and into the triangle. Just make sure that you don't cut your outer stitching on the outer box, or your stitching on the outer box. Okay, so now we have our pocket opening. Now what we want to do to prepare this is we want to come here, and it helps if you press this down. So I will probably press this down, and we're going to do a top stitch all along this piece right here. This is going to help prepare our pocket for flipping it right side. So flipping it so that the right side is on the inside of here. If that makes sense. You'll see, it'll come together. So I'm going to fold this down, give it a little pressing, and then I'm going to take it to my machine, and I'm going to top stitch along here. What you just want to remember is to keep your top stitching inside the box. And I actually keep mine inside the box where the triangle peaks are. So I'll start my top stitching here and finish right here. And then you're going to flip it and do the same thing on this side, and just top stitch straight across here. And I do like to get my top stitch as close So you're going to top stitch on the pocket piece, not the lining piece or the outer piece, but I do like to get it as close to this edge as I possibly can. And the same here, I'm going to get it as close to the edge as I possibly can. You just want to make sure that you do your top stitch on your pocket piece and not your bag piece, the outer lining or the outer fabric for your actual bag. Okay, so I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and do that really quick, and I'll be right back. So I've gone ahead and I've done my top stitch here, and I've done my top stitch here. So now we are ready to fold all of this through this pocket. So I like to just start by taking the bottom piece, pulling it through, and this can be a little bit fiddly. That's why the top stitch helps. And then I just give it a little tug and kind of finger press that down, and then get everything else tucked through to the back side. And we have a nice little opening. So I am going to take this to my iron, and I'm going to press all of these pieces down. Where our little triangle was, this is why we cut that little triangle, because then it helps us to fold this piece back nicely. So I do like to take and press this, especially right here on the edges, because you don't really want these to be crinkled. You want them to be kind of as flat as you can possibly get them. So I'm going to go ahead and take this to my iron and press all of this down. So now we've got this pressed. We can flip it over, and you can see we've got a really pretty zipper pocket here. So the next thing we want to do is go ahead and sew in our zipper, which this part can actually be the most fiddly of this entire process. But don't let that stop you or intimidate you from doing this, because I think you'll love having these hidden zippers inside your bags. So let's go grab a zipper and I'll show you how to sew that in. To insert our zipper into this opening here, we're obviously going to use a zipper, and I always just buy these great big long zippers because I can make multiple sizes out of one zipper, and I just find that it comes in handy for me, and then I can just cut them to length after I get it sewn in. So you're going to want to open it a little ways, place it behind the piece, and then we're just going to line up our zipper so that the zipper teeth are in the middle of our little pocket here. You want to have it opened a little bit, and I'll address this end in just a second. And once you've got it lined up pretty well, we're going to go ahead and just pin this into place so that this doesn't move when we attach the zipper to the pocket. All right, so I have got my zipper pinned into place, and I will be honest, this part is a little fiddly. It just takes a little bit of patience, and give yourself a little bit of grace with this step, because I struggled to and poked myself with the pins a lot. It's really hard to keep the zipper straight. One of the things that I find to be helpful is before I start pinning it in place, I flip it to the back and pin each of my ends beyond the opening into place. That's another benefit of having a zipper that's just a little bit longer. So I just pin each end into place, and then I flip it, and it kind of prevents this from moving on the ends, and it kind of keeps your zipper in center a lot easier. Also, if you have pretty thick fabric doing this, it does kind of make this a little trickier, but again, it just takes a little bit of patience, but it is doable. It's perfectly doable. So I've got it pinned into place, and now I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew this zipper in. I am going to sew it from this front side, so you want to use a thread that matches your outer bag so that the thread is hidden and doesn't show. If you try to sew it into place from the back, you might accidentally get some of the zipper sewn in. So I do recommend sewing it from the front so that you can see your zipper and you always know where your stitches are going. So I'm going to take this and sew straight across here. And again, you want to make sure that you catch you know, your zipper binding into here. So you want to sew as close to this edge as possible, and you're just going to sew all the way across here, up this side, and all the way across, and then down this side. And you may have to, with your zipper, if you open it or close it, I've got mine closed right now, but either way, you may have to like stop sewing here and then open up your zipper and continue sewing this, because it's really hard for the sewing machine foot to get over this zipper pull. So oftentimes I will just sew part way, take it out, open up my zipper, and then finish sewing the top half. And you want to use just a straight stitch to do this, and again, get it as close to this edge as you possibly can. Oh, and something else that does help is to use a zipper foot to do this, because then your zipper foot rides along the zipper and helps you to keep this really straight, and it also helps keep it in place. My zipper is all sewn in, and it's looking pretty good. Feels nice and secure. All the teeth are opening smoothly. I mean, I didn't do the most, you know, perfect job. I could have got this a little bit straighter, but you know, it's okay. We just learn as we go. It looks really good on the front though, and my zipper does open nice and smooth. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut all of my excess off. Something that I also did here, let's see if I can get this closer for you, is where my opening, where my zipper pull and my zipper stop is, I did do several back stitches here just to kind of create a stitched stop for the zipper on both ends. So something else to, you know, think about if you want to do this. I'm gonna cut this a little shorter, I think. Get that excess out of the way. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and finish the pocket. So to finish the pocket, we are simply going to sew right sides together, up this side, across the top, and down this side. However, you do not want to catch this part in your pocket. You don't want this piece, you don't want this to be sewn to this. So to do it, I'm actually gonna clip this. Hold on, let me get some clips. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and clip my pocket together just so I know it stays nice and lined up properly. Now I have this clipped, so we're gonna go ahead and take it to the sewing machine. And again, we don't wanna sew our tote bag piece, our outer tote bag piece, to the pocket. So I'm just gonna fold this over so that I make sure it's out of the way, and then I'm just gonna sew all along here. Then when I get ready to pivot and come across the top, I will fold this and tuck it out of the way, and sew all the way across the top, and then we'll pivot again, tuck it out of the way, and sew all the way down. Okay? So again, we're just gonna sew up this side all the way across the top and all the way down, but make sure that your outer tote bag piece is out of the way and that you don't sew it to your pocket. All right, so let's go sew this. So this is what your pocket should look like once it's all sewn on. Hopefully you did it correctly and didn't sew it to your tote bag piece, the outer piece. So this is what it looks like. Okay, now we have a pocket. Let's see how we did. So we open it up, and ta-da! We have a beautiful, beautiful pocket. Beautiful pocket on the inside. Pretty little pocket. And I like using the contrasting fabric, of course. That is personal preference, you know, you just do you on that one. But yep, we did it. We have successfully sewn in our first pocket in this tote bag. Now we're going to sew our inner pockets in, and you want to make sure that you're sewing these ones to the liner piece. This is very important. If you accidentally sew it to one of these, then it's going to become an outer pocket. So you'll have a pocket outside on both sides of these. And I mean, unless you want that, of course, that's perfectly, totally fine. It's just personal preference. I prefer to have these ones on the inside. So I'm going to sew these ones to the liner piece. Again, you want to make sure that you have right sides facing, and I just have these folded for right now so that I can get them positioned correctly. Make sure I got the top. Oh, there we go. Get them positioned correctly. I definitely think I like that position, so I'm going to go ahead and, oh, I should have just done it that way from the very start. So I have them pinned in place just so that they don't move and go anywhere. And for this one, I'm going to be using a 4.5 inch zipper. So I'm just going to use my 4.5 inch zipper template. And with this template, that's why I like these clear ones better than these ones, because this is pre-measured. So if you just put it at the top, so I need to pin this back in place because I don't want this to move. So with these zipper templates, these ones are my favorite. I like these ones, but these ones, the longest that this one comes is only with an 8-inch zipper, where this one has the longer 12-inch zipper or 10-inch zipper. I believe that's 10 inches. So anyway, with this one makes it easy because you can just line this up with the top of your pocket, pull the little center piece out, line this up with the top of your pocket, and we will trace our zipper opening. And then with this one, you use the centerpiece to place it back into position. Mark your center. And then this one, the little triangle is actually on here. So you just take and mark the dot, and then you can draw your triangle. And I usually just use this to do it so that I can make sure I get nice straight lines. You just want to go to this point right here. Let me zoom this in a little for you. So you're going to go from your dot to this point. To draw your little triangle. Just like that. So the preparation for these pockets is exactly the same as the preparation for this pocket, only we're doing 2. Everything else is exactly the same. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish these pockets and get them installed and sewn in so that we can move on to our next steps. So for our inner divider pocket, you should have 2 pieces that are 16.5 inches this way and 14 inches this way. To get them prepared and ready, we are going to first simply fold it in half with right sides together. Now I'm just gonna clip it all the way across the top. I always go so overkill on clips. You probably don't need this many, but this way I know nothing is gonna move and shift. Okay, so we've got it clipped. We're gonna do that repeat that same exact process for our second piece. Now that we have these clipped into place, we're gonna take them to the sewing machine and just do a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way across the very top. Okay, our pieces have been sewn straight across the top on both sides. So now we're going to go ahead and flatten this because we want to iron these seams open. You can finger press these, but I do feel like you get better results when you actually iron them. So we'll go ahead and iron our seams opened. After we get them ironed, we're going to want to flip them right sides out. And then with the seam, that seam at the top, we will go ahead and give this another pressing. Okay, now we'll just repeat that for this piece as well. Next, I want to go ahead and divide, because we're gonna divide this pocket into 3 sections. So to do that, I'm gonna mark 5.5, then from that mark, 5.5, do the same thing on the bottom. And we will just draw a straight line. On those marks. And we now have 3 equally distanced pockets. So we have 3 pockets that are now the same size. So we are going to now attach these together. I'm going to clip them. And for this step, we are just going to take them to the sewing machine and just sew a straight stitch down this side and a straight, or down this line, and a straight stitch down this line. After getting this pocket sewn, this is what it should look like. And when we get it inserted and fully completed, the construction's fully completed, you'll have 3 little pockets here. Okay, so now we're going to attach this to one of our lining pieces, and you obviously want to attach this to the opposite piece from where we did our zippered pockets. And we're gonna come up about 1 inch from our boxed corner notches, and that's where we're going to sew this. So I'm just gonna pin this in place here. Just pin it or clip it really quick. And we're just gonna sew a straight stitch all the way down each side, from the top of the pocket to the bottom of the pocket. You don't want to stitch beyond this pocket, or it'll create some issues when we're ready to do our boxed corners. So again, we're just gonna stitch from the top of this pocket to the bottom of this pocket, just a straight stitch all the way down. Our divider pocket has now been sewn to one of our liner pieces, and again, I like to just check to make sure everything has been well sewn into place. Now we're going to go ahead and take our liner piece with our zippered pockets. We're going to put them right sides together, line up everything up really well. And this is going to be pretty thick on this side where our divider pocket is, but that is okay. Hopefully you don't have any issues with your sewing machine. Now we are going to sew this just down the sides. So we're going to sew from the top to the bottom on each side. Don't sew here and don't sew here. Not yet, anyway. And we want to leave this open for our turnout. So for right now, we're just going to sew down each of the sides, a straight stitch with a 1/2 inch seam allowance straight down these sides. I've sewn my side seams together. And then I came in and just cleaned this edge up a little bit with some pinking shears just to get rid of some of that extra bulk. Now we're going to go ahead and do our boxed corners. Now on the lining, this is going to be just a little bit different because we're leaving this bottom open for turnout. Normally you wouldn't leave this much of a gap for turnout, but this is a really bulky piece, so I want to just make sure that we have a big enough, lots of space to turn out. So we're going to go ahead and do our boxed corners, and to do this, we're just going to line up. We're going to take this piece, line it up with the edge here so that this piece meets in the seam, and we will clip it. bring this piece in to the seam. Do the same thing. Okay, and we're gonna do this on both sides. So I'll go ahead and repeat this to this side. Now we're going to go ahead and sew our boxed corners with a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way across here from each corner to each corner, and we're going to do that same exact thing on both sides. All right, we got our boxed corners all sewn together, and this is what they should look like. This will be easy to close up now once we get the outer part of our bag attached to this. Then we'll just pull this out and sew across the bottom to close that up. But it is important, like I said, because this is so bulky, to leave a pretty good gap for your turnout. And it's looking pretty good. Got nice boxed corners, it looks good on the inside. So now we'll go ahead and focus on the outer part of our bag. To sew the outer part of our bag, we're going to do exactly the same thing. Make sure you have right sides together, and then we'll just go ahead and clip this all the way around. To sew the outer part of our bag together will be just a little bit different because we don't have to leave a gap for turnout. So we're gonna sew straight down this edge. We're gonna sew straight across the bottom edge and straight across the left side edge. Don't sew these. It is really important to leave these open because this is what we need. We're gonna leave these open so that we can create our box corners. So again, we're just gonna sew straight down the right edge, straight across the bottom edge, and straight down the left edge. All right, so I've got my edges sewn and across the bottom. So now we're gonna go ahead and box the corners on this one as well. So we'll just go ahead and get this pinned up. When I do my seams here like this, I like to let this seam go to this side and this seam go to the opposite side. You just get a little bit less bulk when you go to sew these together. Okay, so now we'll take this to the sewing machine and just do our boxed corner. We'll just stitch straight across from the top here to the top here with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and we'll repeat that on both sides. All right, our boxed corners are sewn on this, so we can go ahead and turn this piece right sides out, and we'll get it prepared for our handles. All right, nice boxed corners there. Good job, guys. All right, now let's go ahead and prepare this for our handles. To prepare this for the handles, I'm just gonna go ahead and fold this in half. And then I'm just gonna mark it. Oh, well, you can't really see my chalk very well. Mark it on both sides. And then we'll go ahead and measure 3 inches on either side from this center point. To prepare our straps, you should have 2, again, 2 of these. I'm just gonna fold this in half. Whoops. Okay, let's try that again. All right, I'm gonna fold this in half and then I'm gonna iron. I'm gonna give this a good press. All right, and we'll go ahead and do that to the second strap as well. And we'll go ahead and open that up, and we have a center line. So we fold the bottom into that center line. Give it a good pressing. Flip it over, fold the next side into that center line. Give it a good pressing. And then we just simply fold it over in half again, give that a good pressing. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and repeat that same exact process with the second strap. after you get your straps good and pressed, we're going to take these to the sewing machine and we're going to sew a top stitch all the way across here and all the way across the bottom. That just gives it a nice polished finish. So I'll take these to the sewing machine and do that right now. Our straps are sewn together. We've got a nice, good, clean finish on those. So we're going to set those aside and work on our zipper holders. So we'll set these aside and then we're going to get to work on preparing our zipper holder for the zipper. So to prepare our zipper holders, you should have 2 of these. We're just going to take them, fold them in half, and give them a good pressing. All right, we have our pieces prepared. So now we're going to go ahead and attach them to our zipper. And to do this step, this little pull is probably going to get in the way. We're going to sew them onto the zipper, just like this. And you want to make sure that the opening on the top piece is at the top and the opening on the bottom piece is at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and pin these. Obviously you want to pin them so that the zippers, so that your fabric and zipper don't move and go anywhere when you take it to the sewing machine. So I'll go ahead and get these pinned and then we'll take it to the sewing machine and we're just going to do a stitch across here and a stitch across here to attach these pieces to our zipper. To sew this on, I do recommend using your zipper foot here. And you want to place the needle, well, let's start here. The edge of your zipper foot right here, right on the edge of your zipper. And then place your needle 1/8 of an inch in from here. My sewing machine allows me to move my needle. So I'm gonna, for my sewing machine, I can move it to 1, which is 1/2 inch, 2 is 1/8. Or 1/4, sorry, not 1/8, 1/4. So that's where I'm going to start my stitch. And I'm going to remove this needle and carefully keep this in place. And then as you begin to sew, you want to make sure you do a lock stitch. And then I recommend sewing very slow, doing this step, making sure to keep your zipper foot along the edge of this zipper. Our zipper is now all sewn into place, nice and secure. Kind of want to just check, make sure you know you got the whole thing attached nice and securely on there. And then we'll go ahead and flip this over and cut our zipper to length. Now what we're going to do is turn this up, kind of folding it on the seam right there. We're going to give it a clip to hold that into place. We're going to close this, give it a clip, and then we're going to create a seam allowance going across here at 1/2 inch, and we're going to sew all the way down. This is going to create the zipper pull, the lock stitch, or the lock, yeah, our locks for the zipper, so the zipper can't come undone. So we're just going to sew right here and right here with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. You want to sew all the way from the end to the end, and again from the end to the end on both sides. We've now sewn the edges, and then I cut the excess off with my pinking shears. My pinking shears are like this. If you've never used these things are absolutely amazing. I love them and I use them all the time. And I just cut that off to eliminate some bulk because we are going to flip this right side out. And you want to poke that out as best you can. And we have a nice, clean zipper insert. Okay, now let's go ahead and get back to our straps. We're gonna move from here back to the straps and get our straps attached to our bag. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and attach our straps. So we had these marked. I know my marks are really hard to see because I did them with chalk. But you basically just want to get them about 3 inches off of your center point. And the other thing that you want to keep in mind, let me clip this so I can kind of show you what I'm talking about. You want to make sure that the curve of your strap is going the same direction and that there's no twist in it, so that when you lift it up, there's no twist. Because if you accidentally get this the wrong way, there's a twist. And you don't really want that twist. So that's something to really pay close attention to make sure that you don't get that twist. And of course, you also want to make sure that you're getting them directly across from one another so that they're exactly even on your bag. All right, so we'll just go do now to attach these to the, something else to mention is you do want to attach these to the outer part of your bag, making sure that you have right sides together here. Well, I mean, on the strap, it doesn't really matter because both sides are the right side, but you want to make sure that you are sewing them to the outside of the bag, because when we put this in our liner and make our seam across, this will get hidden kind of like this inside the bag and it'll look like this. The other thing, when you sew these on, you kind of want to sew your stitch a little higher so that when we attach this to the liner, you don't get any of this part, the edge of your strap showing. I hope that kind of makes sense. But you want to make sure that you do sew those on. And then I'll come back in and do a little top stitch. But I usually do that top stitch very, very, very last after I get the liner sewn in. So for right now, let's go ahead and get these attached with just a 1/4 inch seam allowance on both of these and both of these. Our straps are sewn on, and something else I forgot to mention is I do a couple of stitches across, like I go across, then back stitch and cross, back stitch, cross, back stitch, cross, back stitch, several times just to make sure that this is really well secured, because our handle, you know, supports all the weight of whatever it is we have in our bag. So I do want to make sure that's really well secured to the bag. So now we're going to move on to the zipper. So now with our zipper turned right side out, we're going to go ahead and open up this zipper. If your zipper wasn't already opened, you want to make sure that we open it all the way up. And with this side, this open side of our piece up, we're going to start attaching it to the bag. So I'm just going to, and you just want to lay it over the bag like this, because you definitely want right sides together. And on the seam side, I'm gonna put one seam one way, one the other, just to kind of help eliminate some bulk. I hope you could see what I was doing there. Okay, then we'll go ahead and clip this into place. Okay, we now have our zipper in, you know what, y'all? Okay, so this is why I kind of double check. I put that on upside down. I did not have right sides together. So I screwed up and put that on upside down. So it's always a good idea to double check your work. Or wait, did I put it on upside down? Yes, I did. I have it upside down. So it's a good idea before you sew to check. So now I'm gonna go ahead and undo this and fix it and put it on correctly. Okay, now let's double check to make sure that we do indeed have this correct. So this time I definitely have it correct. This is the way you want it to look. Okay. All right. See, this is why you guys watch me do this first, because you can learn from my mistakes, right? All right, so now we're just gonna take this to the sewing machine and we're gonna sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around the entire top of this, around the raw edge. Just a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around the edge. right, our zipper is sewn into place. We're getting there, y'all. We are almost at the finish line with this. All right, so with right sides facing out on our main outer part of the bag and wrong sides on the inside of our liner, we're going to tuck all of this in. Make sure the straps are facing down on the inside. Make sure your zipper is facing down on the inside. And we're just gonna kind of line everything up with our seams. And we're gonna pin it all the way around. So we'll go ahead and get this pinned into place. Then we get to sew, and we're so close to being done. So let's get this pinned up. Last clip in place, and now we're gonna take this to the sewing machine and we're gonna sew all the way around, all the way around. And this time we're gonna do a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around, making sure that we, catch or cover all of the seams from our straps and our zipper. So we're gonna go 1/2 inch this time, so we're right below our original, or our zipper stitch line. That is what I'm trying to say, because you don't want that stitch line to show when we flip everything right sides out. So again, we're just gonna take this to the sewing machine and sew all the way around. Okay, y'all, we did it. I made a really big blunder here. So I might go back and just kind of fix this, but for the most part, it looks pretty good. So we can do the most satisfying part, I think, and flip it all right sides out. And because this bag is pretty thick and strong, this part can be a little fiddly, which is why I left a really big opening at the bottom of our lining, because we have a lot of things to turn out here. We have an inner pocket, we have lots of pockets. We're turning out several pockets here in our handles and our zipper. So many things to turn out with this one. So that's why I like to leave a pretty big opening on the bottom when I turn this out. Lots of strings, so I like to go through and just kind of pull as many of the strings as I can. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and go close this up, and I'm gonna press it. So I do like to use my iron to do this step. So I kind of make my little seam and then press it. So I'll pin it. Just to make sure. I don't know why I'm pinning it before I'm pressing it, but just to give you guys an idea here. And it does help if you get, like if you have a striped pattern like I do like to try to line up all my stripes. Yeah, I probably won't press it now at this point since I've already got all the clips on. Oh well. Okay. So we've got the clips on, so now I'm going to run this to the sewing machine really quick and sew this straight across to close up our gap. Our gap is closed, so now we can go ahead and, wait, hold on, I've got some strings. If you have some strings, you might want to cut those off. Then we can go ahead and get everything pushed inside the bag. Okay, y'all, so our bag is done and it's really cute. I think I really love how it all came together. The only thing that I don't know if y'all can really see this, but the divider pocket has some ripple to it. And the pattern that I was using to kind of go off of with this said to make this divider pocket the same as your outer bag. I don't think I'm gonna alter that in the pattern for you guys that I do for you, because this needs to be shorter, clearly, because there's too much ripple in it, so it's supposed to be, you know, straight across the inside of our bag like this, and it's not. So that is something that we may need to alter a little bit with this pattern. But for the most part, I think it turned out really good, really cute. I really, really like how it turned out. This zipper piece, if you wanted, you could take and tuck it. This was the, I told you I was gonna come back to this, and you could do a top stitch. This handle got crooked too for some reason. You know, I might've been a little tired when I was doing this project, but you could take this, tuck it, and do a top stitch, a really good, just super close top stitch all along here to kind of keep your zipper inside if you want, so it lays like this, kind of on the inside of your bag, if that makes sense. I might not do that with mine. I might just keep mine because I kind of like the way it looks, so I might just keep it like that, or I might sew it. I mean, there's some options here where you could just do a top stitch across here to keep your bag, or to keep your zipper thing down. See if I can't even make it. This bag is so stiff, I can't even make it do that. But let's see if I zip it. So yeah, it would look something kind of like that if you did the top stitch all along here, which I might just go ahead and do just to make it so that your zipper sits kind of square in the bag like so. But for the most part, I think the bag turned out really, really cute. I do like our little hidden zippers, and I like that we used a contrasting fabric on the inside of the zippers. I think that is super fun, super cute idea. I do like the contrasting zipper. Kind of, part of me wishes I would have went with a gray zipper here, but I do like the gold zipper on the outside of the bag. And I like how on the inside we made the stripes all going this way for the liner, but then on the insert, the stripes are all going vertical. And then over here, we have our other two little zippered pockets, which I know are really hard to see on camera, but they're so cute. I just love this. I love this because this is where you can keep things that you don't want to get lost, like your keys or your phone or whatnot. And then in here, these are perfect pockets for a water bottle, for, you know, this would be a cute bag to use for the gym. So anyway, cute pockets on the inside for your water bottle, whatever you're using. You've got lots of little options for this bag. So, okay guys, well, there it is, our cute little bag. Okay, y'all, so I did decide to go ahead and do the top stitch all the way around, and it does actually make the bag look a lot better because it makes your zipper kind of sit down like where it's supposed to. Oh, little strings, little strings. And when it's unzipped, it kind of stays tucked a little bit better. So I do like doing the top stitch. It kind of just gives it that polished finish, I think. So I kind of maybe would recommend doing that top stitch if you want to, if you like that, you know, if you like that look, that tucked, you know, look. So it kind of just makes it look more boxy, like the zipper's just sitting, although you do get a little bit of a gap right there. But you know what? I think it's okay for a handmade bag. It's pretty darn cute. Y'all will have to let me know what you think and if this is something you think you're gonna give a try. Well, we did it. We successfully built this really beautiful tote bag, and y'all, I can't be any more excited about how well this turned out. I mean, you know, there's a few flaws. Like, I think I really wish that I'd have done this zipper in gray so that it was a little less contrasty, because I do love how when you open it up, you get this beautiful contrasty fabric on the inside, but I do wish I would have used a gray zipper. And I do like the gold zipper up here, so maybe I should have just used the same zipper here. So, I mean, you know, it's got a few flaws, but, you know, all DIY stuff does, right? I think that's the beauty of handmade, is you just get to enjoy the perfectly perfect imperfections. Anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this. I hope it inspired you, and I hope it answered a lot of your questions that you've been asking and reaching out as far as making tote bags and doing the zippers and all the fun little pockets. If you do have any more questions about it, don't hesitate to reach out and ask, because I'm always more than happy to answer your questions and help you out to the best of my ability. And don't forget, I will have not necessarily a pattern, but a pattern guideline available for y'all as a free printable that you can use to just guide you through this whole process. And if you have to, it's going to be more like a cut pattern. Like I'll have all the cut guidelines for you, and then you can just watch the video a couple times if you have to learn how to construct the whole bag. Alrighty friends, well, that is going to wrap up today's projects. This was so much fun, and I especially enjoyed being with y'all because I've really missed you, so it felt so good to be together again. I do look forward to seeing y'all again in the next one and just getting back on our regular schedule. So it is coming soon. Not next week, because we have one more trip to attend, one more big event. My parents are turning 80, so we're all gathering together, all of us family, and for a big just celebration to celebrate my parents. After that though, I think we are done with our summer and we can get back to normal, and I've got a ton of really fun fall content to bring y'all. So I'm really looking forward to that. I can hardly wait to start fall crafting, doing some fall decor, and just making some really fun fall projects. So be patient, stick with me, and keep looking for that fall video coming super soon. I love you guys. Thank you all so much for being here, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Until then, take care, and I will see y'all soon. Bye, friends.